In the next few lessons, we're going to learn how to get a solution set to systems of linear equations and inequalities. Now let's break this down a little bit. There are basically two different ways of getting a solution set. We can get a solution set from graphing, or we can get a solution set algebraically. Now, when we are trying to get solution sets to systems tells us there are more than one. Sometimes the easiest way to do this is by doing it graphically. And when we're doing it graphically, we are simply looking at each one of those equations or inequalities that are part of that system, and we are graphing them individually. The point where all lines intersect becomes the solution. Now, sometimes lines will intersect in one point, sometimes they will intersect in no points at all, sometimes they will intersect in multiple points. But we are able to get this from just graphing each line or inequality. That's one way to get a solution set. The other way to get a solution set is by doing it algebraically. And we will talk about the pros and cons of each system. Eventually, you will have to select which system that you want to work with, but you need to know all of them. We are trying to get a solution set algebraically. There's essentially two ways to find this out for a system. The first way is by something we call substitution. In substitution, we are basically substituting one of the variables, let's say x, for y. And then once we have that, then we are able to solve for y. And it doesn't always happen that way. We can pick any variable. Usually you will pick whatever's easiest for you, that will take the least amount of time. But the idea here is that we substitute one variable so that we solve. The other way of solving algebraically is by using something called elimination. And this is where we actually eliminate one of the variables algebraically. And so we're able to solve, again, for just the variable that's left over. The whole idea with these two algebraically ways of solving for a system is that you essentially solve for one variable first. That's easier. Then you plug in the values to get the value of the other variable. We are first going to get started with how to get the solution set graphically. We have two equations, and they are part of one system. And we usually know they're part of a system because they are grouped together with this bracket. We're going to solve for this system by graphing each line individually. We're going to start with our y equals 2x plus 1. And the first thing that we need to know is notice that 1 is our y-intercept and 2 over 1 is our slope. With this information, you can go ahead and start graphing. There's my y-intercept, and I'm going to use my slope and go up 2 over 1. Then I'm going to collect my dots with a line. And then I'm going to move on to my next equation. The first thing I need to do is I need to solve for y. Now, even though you don't see that where both lines intersect, you do get a sense or an idea that these two lines are going to eventually intersect somewhere in this plane. And it's gonna be in the third quadrant right here. We just need to find the point. So that is one of the constraints of finding a solution graphically. Sometimes the solution takes you way outside the coordinate plane that you have in front of you, and it's really difficult to figure out. So this is why we use graphing calculators a lot. My point down here where both lines are going to meet is going to be -8, -15. Let's look at our next example. We want to first turn on our graphing calculator, and then what we want to do is want to find and press the y equals button. That is going to bring us a screen with multiple places where we can actually type in what our equation looks like. So don't worry about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 next to the y's. That is just simply something that is used when you have multiple lines being graphed at once. So our first line is going to be y equals 4x minus 1. So I'm going to go ahead and type the 4x minus 1 part because I already have the y equals. So I'm going to press 4. To get your variables, you want to press down your alpha. So that is going to enable you to press on any of these green buttons that you have. And what we want to do is we want to look for the x. And then I want to continue and press my -1. I can press enter and it will take me to the next line where I'm going to press in my next equation, which is -1/2 x plus 8. For the negative sign, you want to use this negative sign that's down here. You don't want to use the subtraction sign. So I'm going to press negative. And then you're going to press 1/2. Now 1/2 as a fraction is going to be 1 over 2, and over, we're going to use a division symbol for the fraction bar. And then again, I have to look for the x, so I'm going to press down my alpha to enable all my alphabetical values. Find my x, and then the plus sign for 8. If I press enter, it's going to take me to the next line. All right, so you have two options here. If you want to go directly to see what these lines would look like graphed together, you want to find the graph button up here and press graph, and the calculator will graph both lines for you. Now it is a little bit difficult to see each point. So we have the button here that says trace, and if you press on that button, it will allow you with the arrow keys to travel up and down the line. If you press this particular arrow key that goes to the right, it's going to travel up and down the line, so you're able to see as you're traveling, and you can do the opposite. These are the actual x values for the point that you're currently sitting on, and the y values. So that is one option. So as I get closer to this, I notice that I'm getting a fraction. That's why my decimals are there. So I'm not able to really see, but I know it's higher than x equals 1.9, and I know that it's lower than the next one, which is x equal to 12. So my other option that I have with this is to actually see these points, in a table. And to do that, so to be able to press any of these items in blue, you have to hit the second button that is blue. So I'm going to hit my second button blue, and then I'm going to hit graph where I'm actually pressing table. And then the calculator will bring up the table of these. Now if you remember correctly, remember each y had a little 1, so this is our first equation, that is this one, and this is our second equation, that's that one, and these are the x values that are the same for both. So when x equals 0, this is what y is for this one. When x equals 0, this is what y is for the second equation. And so what I notice is in this particular line where x equals 2, I have y from the first line equals 7, and I also have y from the second line equals 7. So that is the only value in the entire table that I can see is the same value for both lines. That tells me that that is the solution to this equation.